Good morning. My name is Bill Sullivan. I'm the Vice President for Denodo here in Washington, D.C., with responsibility for the federal government business. I have the privilege today of speaking with Justin Marsico, the Chief Data Officer for the U.S. federal government Bureau of Fiscal Service within the Department of Treasury. It's a particularly critical agency for both for the government and for our country. Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on CDO Magazine discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Bill. It's a real privilege.
I wanted to just ask if there's any other topics that, you're the first CDO in the agency doing great work. Anything you've learned or anything you'd like to share with your fellow, government executives, be they chief data officers or line officers that you think might benefit them as a result of your experience?
One of the things that's been really helpful to me by being a part of the community of CDO Magazine is by getting to meet people who are CEOs in other non-government organizations, working in, let's say, the financial sector or the technology sector, or even in like marketing or retail. One of the things that I've discovered, which has been really eye-opening for me, is that many of these executives are facing the same challenges that we're facing, or they're at the same point in their data journey that we are at. I think inside of the federal government, we tend to think that everyone else is far ahead of us. But what I've discovered is that there's a lot of people within industry who are struggling with the same types of things. And I mentioned this earlier, but I think that one of the differences is if your organization has a long history, or if you're a new organization, if you're a digital native company, probably you created systems in the cloud for the first time.
Yeah.
You thought about your data as being more than a byproduct of a transaction. You thought about the strategic use of it while you were designing the systems. If your organization has been around for 40, 50 years, whether it's a retail organization or a government organization, you're probably dealing with legacy systems that weren't designed that way and that you have to figure out how to shoehorn into producing value. So anyway, that's what I would say to my colleagues is, it's great to form connections with the data officials who are working within federal, state, and local government, but many people within other private sector organizations are struggling with the same things that we are.
Right, right. Downstream or upstream, however you want to choose it, to look at it, of the data integrity issue for the whole government, how would you recommend to, your partners in government, how they ensure data integrity within their own agencies? And as you think about that, certainly every CFO in the commercial industry worries about that. You don't want to visit from the SEC, much less the guys in the blue windbreakers. But if you're unsuccessful, then there's a whole bigger problem for the country. As you're speaking with your other peers in the agencies, any thoughts about how should they be ensuring the integrity of their financial data?
Well, I'll kind of give you two ideas and just keep it at that. One is a little more kind of serious and straightforward, and the one I'll close with is a little more fun. So I would say the first thing is to make sure that you have your own control process in place that you understand and that makes sense to you. That's important. It's basic. But a part of that is also understanding and talking to other financial partners that you have about what tools they have to also help you. So within the federal government, we have, at Treasury, we have a team, a really good team in our Office of Payment Integrity, who helps agencies to find issues with their data, to look for areas where they could potentially be making improper payments and to try to stop those in partnership with the agency. So there are opportunities like that may exist in other organizations. And I would encourage everyone to look outside of your own office to other central or shared services that exist that could help. That's number one. Number two is like, this is not necessarily going to help with like data integrity and like in preventing audit issues. But one thing I think is really important is to try to use your own data, to like take yourself out of your normal position and try to think about a question that you might want to answer with the data and do it yourself and see what that process is like. See where you have issues, see where the data is not quite as descriptive as you thought that it was going to be, or not as complete as where you thought it was going to be, or where the codes don't seem to align with what you think the reality is. That gives you the type of insight into what other analysts are experiencing and can kind of open the door for thinking about potential improvements that you can make to your own data.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Have I missed anything? Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I just want to say thank you again for having me here. It's a privilege to talk with you and to be a part of the community here talking about data. I guess in closing, I would say for anyone who is interested in seeing our Treasury data on one of our public sites, I mentioned we have usaspending.gov before, where we have details on federal contracts and grants. We also have a website called Fiscal Data, which is at fiscaldata.treasury.gov. You can go there to see the Treasury Department's official numbers on topics like the national debt, just updated every day, on interest rates. You mentioned Treasury securities a little bit earlier. You can get data on how many savings bonds that we've sold and redeemed, I-bonds, if you've heard of those. Those are sold by the Fiscal Service. There's a whole host of information there, over 108 different data tables that are updated on a regular basis on information about the financial operations of the federal government. And for all the Americans who are there, we feel that that understanding this information is really a key to being a part of a democratic society. So we encourage everybody to check out what's there.
That's terrific. Well, Justin, first, thank you for the work you're doing for the country. Grateful. I'm a taxpayer, more than I'd like, but I'm grateful to know that our dollars are handled with integrity. I also thank you on behalf of CDO Magazine for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts. Close out on a personal note, lifetime pianist, what is your favorite Chopin work?
Oh my goodness. You know, Chopin is like very difficult to to play. There is a scherzo that I think that I remember learning when I was in high school, though it's been a while. Obviously, like all of the nocturnes are quite beautiful to listen to.
Yeah.
I would recommend, this is a slightly different direction from your taking this. One of my favorite pieces to play is, I'm not going to get the full French name right, but called it's Pavane for
For the Dead
Small Child,
Princess
for a Dead
with
Princess. Yeah, the piano.
Mendelssohn or Davis. Yeah, Mendelssohn.
It's Ravel.
Ravel, yeah.
Yeah, the piano for that is something that I would like to learn, but haven't fully been able to learn yet. So I'd recommend listening to that if anyone's interested.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again. We appreciate it. I hope you have a great long weekend coming up. And thank you for taking your time, and our best wishes from CDO Magazine.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.